1965. The air in Sant'Agata Bolognese hums with the quiet ambition of a burgeoning automotive legend. But within the hallowed halls of the Lamborghini factory, a different kind of hum is brewing. It is a sound born of defiance and an audacious vision that exists outside the official ledgers. As the heavy iron doors of the main assembly line click shut and the last of the day shift workers depart, the factory floor falls into a deceptive, hollow silence. Dust motes drift through the sparse, yellow beams of high-mounted night lights. In the deep shadows of the rear bays, 3 men remain. Gianpaolo Dallara, Paolo Stanzani, and Bob Wallace move with the calculated intent of ghosts. They are not here to maintain the status quo. They are here to dismantle it. Each footfall on the concrete is measured, each movement deliberate. They operate in the dark, far from the oversight of their formidable boss, Ferruccio Lamborghini. The tools are laid out on a workbench, cold and waiting. Tonight, the factory is no longer a place of routine production. It has become a sanctuary for a secret. Dallara, Stanzani, and Wallace waste no time. They drag a heavy, stripped-down frame into the center of the bay, the metal groaning against the concrete floor. They have no blueprints, no official authorization, and absolutely no budget. They have only the raw, unrefined geometry of a mid-engine layout. Stanzani positions the engine block, his hands steady despite the exhaustion of a full day's work. They need to mount it transversely, a configuration that defies every standard of the era. The first attempt fails. The drive shaft hits the frame. The tolerance is too tight by a fraction of a millimeter. Wallace swears, grabs a file, and begins to grind the steel down, sparks showering the floor like falling stars. They work in a rhythm, a silent, synchronized dance of trial and error. They measure, they cut, they weld, and they measure again. When the engine finally slides into place, the fit is perfect. The weight is balanced, the center of gravity low and aggressive. They stand back, wiping grease from their foreheads, looking at the skeletal frame. It is not a car yet, but it is no longer just an idea. The year is 1965. The Turin Motor Show is a sea of polished chrome and pristine paint, a gallery of conventional automotive beauty. Then, the Lamborghini team rolls out their creation. It is not a car, it is a skeleton, a bare chassis of exposed steel, complex geometry, and raw mechanical intent. The crowd stops. The ambient noise of the hall drops as onlookers approach the display, heads tilting in confusion. There is no bodywork to admire, no sleek curves to trace, only the naked truth of the mid-engine layout. A man in a suit leans in, his eyes tracing the placement of the transverse engine, his expression shifting from doubt to realization. The silence in the room becomes heavy, expectant. Then, the first order form is signed. Then another. Hands reach for pens, scribbling signatures on paper for a machine that does not yet exist in its final form. The engineers watch from the periphery, their hands still stained with the grease of the factory floor, witnessing the moment their secret project transforms into a global demand. Geneva, 1966. The Bertone studio is a pressure cooker of ambition and exhaustion. Marcello Gandini stands before the P400, his hands tracing the final, sweeping lines of the bodywork. It is a sculpture of steel and glass, a vision of speed, captured in static form. But the clock is ticking. The show opens in hours, and the final assembly is a disaster. The engine block refuses to settle into the bay. It is a fraction of an inch too tall, a catastrophic misalignment that threatens to shatter their credibility before the world. They push, they lever, they sweat, but the hood will not close. The silence in the studio is suffocating. If the world sees the engine bay empty, the dream dies. If they see it unfinished, the reputation of the factory is ruined. Stanzani stares at the gap, his face pale under the harsh work lights. he makes the call. They grab heavy steel ballast weights, shoving them into the engine bay to simulate the presence of the V12. They lower the hood, the metal catching on the latch with a final, hollow click. They lock it. The secret is sealed behind steel. They have bought themselves a temporary victory, but the weight of the deception is heavier than the engine they failed to fit. They stand back, breathing hard, looking at the perfect silent machine. The Geneva Motor Show floor is a cathedral of light and expectation. The P400 sits at the center of the Lamborghini display, a low, predatory shape that seems to pull the very air toward it. The crowd is dense, a shifting mass of suits, flashbulbs, and murmurs. Marcello Gandini stands nearby, his gaze fixed on the hood. He knows what lies beneath the steel. He knows the weight of the ballast holding the illusion in place. A journalist pushes through the throng, notepad in hand, and reaches for the latch. The movement is casual, almost reflexive. Stanzani steps forward, his hand catching the man's wrist with a grip that is too firm, too fast. A brief, sharp exchange follows, a smile that does not reach the eyes, and the journalist pulls back, confused but deterred. The moment passes, but the air around the car remains charged. Onlookers circle the machine, tracing the lines of the fenders, their faces reflecting the sheer, impossible beauty of the design. They see only a legend in the making. The hood remains locked, a silent guardian of the secret, as the world falls in love with a ghost. The deception at Geneva was only the beginning. Back in the factory, the team worked with a new, frantic intensity. They had the design, they had the acclaim, but they still lacked the heart. Weeks of sleepless nights followed, grinding, milling, and adjusting until the 3.9-liter V12 finally sat perfectly within the chassis. The moment of truth arrived in the pre-dawn silence of the testing ground. Bob Wallace turned the key. The engine did not just start, it erupted. A deep, guttural roar vibrated through the concrete, rattling the windows and shaking the very air. They pushed the Miura onto the track, the sun rising over the Italian hills. The car moved with a predatory grace. It accelerated, the needle climbing past numbers that had previously been considered impossible. 200, 250, 276 kilometers per hour. The engineers stood by the track, watching their creation dominate the asphalt, the roar of the V12 echoing long after the car vanished. The Miura was no longer just a machine. It was a passport to a world of glamour and excess. Frank Sinatra pulled his car to the curb in front of a crowded hotel, the low, wide silhouette drawing every eye on the street. He stepped out, the engine still ticking as it cooled, a picture of effortless cool that defined the era. Miles Davis took the wheel with a different intent. He drove the Miura through the winding roads of the hills, pushing the car to its limits, the engine wailing in a syncopated rhythm that mirrored his own improvisational genius. When the car finally met the guardrail, it became a legend of its own, a testament to the wild, untamed spirit of the man behind the wheel. Then came the rock gods. Eddie Van Halen found in the Miura a mechanical extension of his guitar. He recorded the raw, guttural roar of the V12, weaving the sound directly into the bridge of a hit song, immortalizing the machine in the annals of rock history. The car was everywhere, a blur of motion in the background of a changing world. It was the ultimate statement of rebellion, a piece of art that demanded to be driven hard and lived fast. From the jazz clubs to the stadium stages, the Miura was the heartbeat of a generation that refused to play by the rules. The legend did not stand still. As the years passed, the original P400 underwent a metamorphosis, driven by the relentless pursuit of perfection. The P400S arrived, tightening the chassis and refining the interior. But the hunger for more remained. Engineers pushed the V12 further, coaxing more power from the transverse block, climbing from 350 to 370 horsepower. Then came the ultimate iteration, the P400SV. It was the pinnacle. The rear fenders flared outward, a physical manifestation of the wider tires, needed to harness the increased output of 385 horsepower. The most striking change was the face of the car itself. The iconic eyelashes around the headlights were stripped away, leaving the front end clean, sharp, and intensely focused. It looked like a predator that had finally shed its vanity to embrace pure function. The car felt tighter, more responsive, and undeniably faster. It was a fully realized machine, honed by experience and tempered by the road. The SV stood as the definitive statement of the Miura project. By 1973, the factory floor that once hummed with clandestine energy fell silent on the Miura line. The era of the rounded, sensuous curve had reached its natural conclusion. In its place, a new, angular shape emerged from the shadows of the design studio. The Countach. It was sharp, aggressive, and undeniably futuristic, carrying the torch of Lamborghini into a new decade. Yet, the Miura remained the ghost in the machine. Every mid-engine supercar that followed, regardless of the badge on the hood, traced its lineage back to that single, unauthorized spark of genius born in the dark. The three engineers who had worked in the shadows had achieved the impossible. They had forced the world to look at the supercar not as a luxury, but as a mid-mounted, high-performance weapon. The final, pristine P400 SV glides along a mountain road as the sun breaks over the Italian peaks. The light catches the metal, turning the car into a sliver of gold against the gray stone. It moves with a grace that defies its age, a timeless icon navigating the same roads where it first proved its worth. The Miura was never meant to exist. It was a rebellion that blossomed into a global phenomenon, a secret project that shattered the conventions of its time. It changed everything. It redefined the very essence of speed, passion, and design. Decades later, the roar of that V12 still echoes in the hills, a testament to the fact that when passion defies convention, the result is not just a car, but a legend that will never truly fade.